Hey there, friends. Happy Sunday. So, I haven't done a tarot-related video in a couple weeks. I try to put out only useful things or interesting things, and I haven't had a whole lot to say, but I've talked about this before. I have been loving March of the Pips, so kudos and thanks to Kelly and Patrick and Itsy for making this a thing, because I feel like I don't know, I feel like maybe I was headed in this direction anyway, but this really gave me a push to really dive into it. And I don't know, I was looking for something new with tarot myself, because you can start to feel a little stagnant after a while. There's something that happens whenever you're doing anything where you plateau. And when that happens, you sometimes just throw in the towel or you find something new. And so this was definitely something new to give into. And I talked about how the kind of coming and falling in love with the wild unknown was sort of my gateway drug. Maybe that's not a very politically correct thing to call it, but it was my gateway into reading non-traditional, non-situational minors. So that's what I've taken to calling them, is non-situational. There's really no. I think the best word for them is just pips. You know what I mean? But whatever. That's not the point. I think I was headed in that direction because the wild unknown gave me that courage, and then I had learned, over the years, so much about the Rider-Waite-Smith deck and its brethren and sisterin, that I was not married to the images as much as I thought I would be when I started. When I started reading, if it wasn't straight up Rider-Waite-Smith, I don't know if I couldn't read it, but I didn't want to. I may not have been able to, but I just didn't want to. And I used to be really snotty about reading in general, like if I couldn't handle if a deck was older, pre-Rider-Waite-Smith with justice and strength reversed. I partly liked the strength as 8 because of its correspondence to Leo, because I'm a Leo. But gosh, I've talked many times about how I have no relationship to astrological associations, so why did I care about that? Not to say that it doesn't matter, but it didn't really matter that much to me. I just bought the argument that I bought the Waite-Smith argument that it should be 8 and 11, the strength and justice. But as time went on, the images actually stopped mattering as much. They would prompt things occasionally, and sometimes they didn't. But it was more the meaning of the card. And yeah, I mean, it just that's why I could start reading with more and more decks, because the images actually started mattering less and less. Not to say that they didn't matter at all. It was just I didn't need 3 swords piercing a heart, say, or a man carrying 9 wands. I didn't need that anymore. I knew that was that, and in a way I was always kind of reading those, even if the deck didn't show that. And I didn't know that really probably until about a year ago, when I jumped back in kind of really fully, because I take hiatuses from time to time. So anyway, that's all, my journey and whatnot, and probably, I don't know if it's interesting or not to listen to. I hope it is. I like hearing this stuff from folks. The reality is, though, that I feel like I was headed in this direction, and so I'm happy to have the experience of kind of jumping in. These are the decks that I've been working with, and I just thought I would talk, just, I don't know, mostly I'm making this video in part because I'm having like an incredibly lazy weekend, which is nice because I've needed one. But my tendency when I'm slightly bored is to go buy things I don't need, you know. And I've already done some online shopping this weekend. Actually, I bought yet another deck I don't need but really wanted. So here's the decks I've been working with. And the most surprising one I have to say has been this. This is the Mary Packard. Is that her name? Gosh, let me look. I should have seen this or looked at it before. Yeah, huh, can't believe I got that. This is the Mary Packard version of the Visconti Sforza, and I bought it mostly just because I watched Kelly from the Truth and Stories video, and I wanted to look at the book. So I didn't even really care about the cards that much. I wanted to just sort of read through the book, and it was fine. But it actually, I ended up liking the cards a lot more than I expected to. It is a bit of a beast to shuffle. I'm not gonna lie. Let's see. I had once or twice managed to get kind of a decent riffle shuffle out of it, but never again. I've never managed to do it that elegantly again, but it's fine. You know what I mean? And when I'm not shuffling around a tripod, it goes a little bit better. But I really, really, really like it. For a while I sort of thought, oh, I should, maybe I should get like the Il Meneghello edition, because that, it looked aged and it looks real. But I'm kind of happy to have this reproduction. It's not even a reproduction, it's a complete and total redraw. This is sort of to the Visconti Sforza what the universal weight is to the Rider-Waite Smith. It's the universal weight is frequently talked about a recoloring. It's not a recoloring. The line, it is a recoloring, but the lines everything's been completely redrawn. The lines are thinner, you know what I mean? We don't have the same lithographs. So in this sense, this isn't photographs of the original. It's completely redrawn, but for that reason, it actually is very clean and very clear. And gives a sense of what it might have looked like when it was new, minus the gilding. There is a little bit of shimmer on the edges and on the backs, but it's not anything glamorous. And I mean, I kind of don't necessarily want glamour here. I didn't notice until just now, but the backs are actually the easiest way to tell whether the card's reversed or not, because I don't read reversals anymore, because like I've talked about before, I tend to use context to give me a sense of light and shadow in the reading, and so I use the cards themselves to give me a sense of what, whether I should be looking at the more joyful, the happier, or the more negative. I pronounce that word that way because what I mean is a negation, and like it negates the positive. So I really am surprised by how much I fell in love with the deck. It's not easy to shuffle, but beyond that, it just has a very satisfying feeling to hold. It really does. I don't know. It feels almost like this is the way tarot cards are supposed to be shaped. I was making a mess. It just feels right. And as one of the earliest decks, it feels like it belongs in a collection. So nothing I have out here is not anything that you haven't seen. I'm just sort of talking about what has been inspiring for me. I've also been using the Ancient Italian Tarot, which I trimmed the borders off. Really, I have a video on when I talked about this too, because of the backs, because I didn't like the white border on the back, and it didn't have any effect on the front. But I quite like this too. This is the one I've been carrying around with me, because it's really compact. In fact, I destroyed the box from having it in my bag, carrying it around with me. So I had to take my Robin Wood deck and put it in the Golden Tarot box, and then put this in the bag that I had the Robin Wood in, because I never use the Robin Wood Tarot anymore. Not that I don't like it, it's just not, So this has been a lot of fun to work with too. I love the style of art in this, and again, there's walkthroughs of this. This is probably one of my favorite star cards. It just feels I just like it. You know what I mean? It's attractive. I think the Magician in this deck is like the only card I don't, if this is the one I'm thinking of, it's like the only one I don't like, because he looks kind of like the stereotypical Dickensian drunk. And the Magician is one of the most important cards to me. Oh, yeah, there he is. Doesn't he look like he should be like the bartender at, the oh God, what's the name of the bar, the pub in Oliver Twist? It's the Three Cripples. Not a very politically correct name. Or the drunk innkeeper in Les Mis. But other than that, I really like this deck. This is a deck that I got in a trade. I did an unboxing of this. It's the Lady Heather Hall, Rosenwald, Minchiati Tarot, which I really like. But I don't know if you can see this on the video, but even in shuffling it, I've already bent the Fool card, because it's not card stock for playing cards. It's like business card stock. So as I said in that video, I'm probably going to back it with something. I just haven't found anything I like quite yet. This was a deck I went back and forth about. This was in the same unboxing as the Minchiati deck. I really love this deck. I don't know what it is. It's just pretty great. So it comes with extra cards. This one's tucked inside the box, so it's like an extra devil card. And then there are these Oracle cards that remind me of like sort of odd nautical, for some reason, postcards. And then there's an extra tower card, although it's not called the tower. But other than that, I mean, it's really just straight up pip deck. This is everyone on my Instagram feed is living for this deck right now, and I can see, I don't know, like, it's not beautiful, but it is. It's like ugly beautiful. And it reads well, and it's funny, and it's just, and I've never really been drawn to the Deviant Moon Tarot. It's just, again, I like the art from an artistic standpoint, but it doesn't call for me to read with. This is very, very similar, but I just find it so amusing, and I love it. I really do. At the time that I bought this, it was on Facebook that there were only a few copies left. Since then has been announced a copy with French titles. So if you didn't get this and you want it, and it's the Italian version is sold out, the French titles are apparently out or will be out. I wish I had known that, because I probably would have bought the French titles, just because my background, my ethnicity is French, so that's my so I'm drawn. All the decks that I've really been using, this one are all Italian. The only one that I have with the original French titles is this one. This is the Marseille by Jodorowsky and Philippe Camois, which I have. Whoa! This is why one has to go slowly in life. So this is the Jodorowsky Camois. I talked about this one before. It's straight up Marseille, and it's fine. The thing that I dislike about it, well, first thing, the cardstock doesn't feel thin until you go to shuffle it. And then it feels really, when you riffle shuffle it, it feels really thin. I'm gonna make a mess. I knew better, I knew better. Anyway, it feels really thin when you shuffle it. I didn't even need to demonstrate it. I'm sure no one doubted that. Whatever. I actually enjoy shuffling, though. So it's fine. In terms of Marseille colorations, I actually quite like it because it's not just red, blue, and white. The thing that gets me are the things that Jodorowsky, I don't know how to pronounce his name, added, and I've talked about this with the High Priestess. There's an egg, he says, right there, that does not show up in any other version of this deck that I can find online. The reason that I got this one, it was that when I was looking, this was the most easily available at the time, and I didn't want to spend a lot of money because I didn't know if I was gonna, really enjoy this process. So it's fine. It's probably the one I've used the least. I would really love like a nice. What I want is the Yoav Bendov version of it, because I do really like his book. The Alejandro Jodorowsky book, The Way of the Tarot, has a lot of good stuff in it, and it has a lot of stuff that bugs me, and that's not fair. But that's. And I've said this before too. I mean, pardon me if I'm repeating myself a lot. I just wanted to kind of get on here and talk a little bit. He kind of is very negative about sort of Waite Smith Golden Dawn stuff, and they kind of deserve that. There's something very smug about Waite, and there's something kind of smug about the Golden Dawn. But the things that he seems to be criticizing Waite and the Golden Dawn for, he has also done. For example, adding things into the cards that weren't there, which he claims to have restored. Which is exactly what Waite said he was doing to the tarot. Now, Waite took it to an extreme by completely, redoing it, but it's the same, if you're taking stuff that cannot, there's no evidence that was there. And I think the thing with both of these guys is that they kind of admitted that they knew better and than others, and that they were rectifying or fixing what had been corrupted to various extremes. It bugs me. Just say, I wanted to add this because I don't need, and I don't know anyone who needs, we all recognize that the tarot is a game. I don't know anyone who still thinks that it started with any esoteric anything, and if you do, I guess that's fine, except that there's no evidence of that. There's just none. On both sides, the people who don't believe tarot has any ability to do anything, and the people who do, by and large. I haven't read a single author, commentator in modern times who says that it had any esoteric beginnings. And that, to me, is actually cool. You know what I mean? Because it just reminds us of how powerful anything can be if we enable it, if we empower it, which is kind of nice because that means we have that too. So that's why the Jodorowsky book drives me nuts, and that's why I'm less than in love with that deck. Now, this deck I really do love, and this is the Il Meneghello, the Neoclassico, Tarocco Neoclassico. This was kind of an auspicious buy because I took a gamble and ordered it on eBay because I really wanted an Il Meneghello deck, and this one actually at the time was the one that looked the nicest and was the least expensive on eBay when I was looking, and then I went to YouTube and I saw that Kelly had done an unboxing of this from The Truth and Story, and I felt very assured that it was a good choice because I saw how excited she was, and also it just looks good. And she, no kidding about the paper and the cardstock and the way it shuffles. So this is another of my favorites right now. So those are the decks that I've been working with, and I'm loving them. I have one in the mail, well, not even in the mail yet. One that I ordered last night. which is not it's not this it's like the Trionfi della Luna. It's the only one in the bunch that's new, and I can't wait for it. And it's going to be here. I'm hoping it's going to be here by the end of March, but oh well. So so yeah, and then I did a video on how I was learning the numerology, and you can go and see the spreadsheets I worked on and whatnot. I left my distillation of my research and my final keyword sheet on my website, so you can grab it if you want to see what I came up with. I didn't keep my original research notes, the spreadsheet that I did a video on, only because ultimately it wasn't my material. It was stuff I sourced, but I just ultimately felt like, I was kind of showing how I was getting there, and no one asked me to do this, but I just decided ultimately that, like, after working with those roughly 10 sources, and I had distilled it down, that I had no problem leaving that out in the world, but I didn't want to have other people's work, on my site, just because it wasn't mine. But the spreadsheet that I made, that I distilled everything down to with the light and shadow, and then my ultimate, this is sort of the handout that I made. It's kind of a mess because I've been keeping it. This is my bullet journal for anyone who likes to bullet journal. I nowhere near as beautiful as other people's, but I do bullet journal. Here's what my week looks like. Very straightforward. I don't decorate it in any way, but I do have beautiful fountain pens and gorgeous inks. So it's a little crumpled, but this was what I came up with after going through all the research that I'd done and kind of distilling it down to things that made sense. And it was amazing how quickly I kind of internalized this. And I think that I wouldn't have had such an easy time internalizing it if I hadn't done the research and then distilled it down and then gone through. You can see the video where I went through how I did light and shadow for each card, for each number, for each suit, and worked my way through it. And then this was a distillation of that. I probably would not have had as easy a time with the learning process had I not kind of put myself through the ringer that way. I mean, that's the reality of studying, is that it's much, you can sit there and try to memorize things, which is what I've been doing as I try to learn Lenormand, but it's kind of easier to go and research and dig and make notes, and however you do it, and then compare and contrast and choose what makes sense, and then distill, because what you're really doing as you're doing that is studying. That's been really helpful in my world. And I like hearing what I don't know if it was because I was such a bad student when I was a kid or what, but I do have a tendency to feel like when someone has a meaning that they have that is different from what I learned, I feel like, oh no, I did it wrong. I think that that's just a natural reaction. There's no wrong, I feel like. But I do like to hear what other people think about, because those little nuggets of information stay with you, or at least stay with me, far more than you expect them to. And for example, I learned the 7 number as sort of inner evaluation, inner reflection, separation, distance, inner conflict, reflection, sort of like an internal reevaluation of where we are in the progression of the numbers. But I've heard it many, many times, more commonly, and again, this just came from research and making things make sense to myself, as new growth, as regrowth, or the combination of 4 and 3 is stability and growth, kind of creating a new level. And that I'm very committed in a way to my 7, but I will at some point do a reading, and that other version of 7 will pop into my head. And that's what's supposed to happen. That's why we keep learning and keep reading and keep doing this stuff. So I think that that's a good thing, which is one reason why, because I posted this for anyone who's curious. You can get it on my website. I'll leave the link below, but not because I'm right or because I think you should use this, but because I think that it's helpful to see what other people have come up with. So I'm just sharing with you what my research yielded. So that has been useful and helpful for me. Another thing I did with the 9, I consciously chose a more slightly difficult or conflicting 9 than I had. I consciously went with a more shadowy base, because really the only number that has any kind of disruptive or negative qualities, again, I'm choosing that pronunciation of that word that way on purpose, is the 5, which is all about disruption of stability, upheaval, discord, conflict. Now, it does have light aspects like expansiveness, new cycle, breaking out of structure. Like, everything has its other. And that's one thing that's really important to me in terms of reading tarot. Because when I start, and I've talked about this before, so again, I hope this is interesting. You learn, I think, or I learned early on that there were good cards and bad cards. And people say, oh, there aren't. But the most of the books that I had read, not all, but many of them had a sense of like, well, the 3 of Swords is loss and pain. And pain may yield good things, but that doesn't feel good, what you don't know until you've read for a while is what the actual light aspect of the 3 of Swords in its Rider-Waite-Smith incarnation indicates. The other thing too is that I started reading when I was 19. You don't know a whole lot about life at that age, you know what I mean? And so it's hard to be. I mean, I did decent readings. I didn't know what I was talking about half the time, but and that's not to say you can't be 19 and be a great reader, but I'm 37 now, and I know a lot more about what the 3 of Swords feels like and how that can be a really positive thing. So, just because I've lived and I've suffered, and I've been through stuff. So, it happens. But anyway, the original point was like everything has its other, right? So the 4 is about solidity, security, structure, established systems. But the downside of that is being stuck in those and being conservative in a bad way. And I think that all of the cards have things like that. But the only thing that was sort of at its base disruptive was the 5. And so when I was going through with the 9, I consciously chose the meanings to study that were a little more difficult, and just the idea of like pushing through to the final thing is hard. Actually, if I'm going to do a video as soon as I'm done with this about what this has taught me about the Rider-Waite-Smith system, for anyone who's curious. But the 9 of Wands has a very 9 feeling to me, which is like, people think of that as burden. I've never thought about that card as burden. It's always to me been like the anxious, the difficult push to the final level. That to me is what it's representative of the 9. And, there's good stuff in there. For some reason, getting what you gave and humanitarianism show up there. But just the idea of pushing through, of not knowing if you can do it. Like, one of the meanings I chose for that was anxiousness due to uncertainty. Like, can I get there? And like, what if everything I've gone through doesn't yield the results I want it to? Because just, the reality of life is just because we try to do it doesn't mean we can. And just because we get through it doesn't mean it came out the way we want it to. So, that's been that. So I chose a more difficult focus for the 9, but then, it has its light side too, which is that push, which is that ability to, do that which we didn't think we could do, etc. So, yeah. So this has been my month so far. I'm really enjoying. And in fact, one of the things that I said in the live chat this weekend was that I don't know what it's gonna feel like to go back to situational minors. I don't know, will it feel distracting? They had started to, and that's where I started to go at the very beginning of this random ramble, was that the pictures were sometimes getting in the way, or not getting in the way, but they were at odds with, and I felt like, I felt like the card was telling me something else, but then I had to reckon with the image. So I don't know. I definitely feel the commitment. You don't ever lose what you learned, so the Rider-Waite-Smith system never goes away in my mind. But there is something that's been very freeing about doing it this way. In fact, I just did a client reading for the first time using this deck. Which I tend to rely or call on decks when I'm reading for clients that I know work well for me. So, just because if someone's paying, and I don't have a lot of paying clients, you know what I mean? And I don't advertise because life gets crazy. But the reason I charge money at all is because life is crazy and time is cost, time is money, so to speak. But I did do one using this deck, and it was really, I was nervous in a way that I wasn't, I haven't been in years since I started reading for other people. I felt like, oh my God, and it wasn't live. So I kind of went in knowing that if it went badly, I could go back and use a more, deck I know better, or one that, whoops, oh my God. I'm only this bad at shuffling no, that's a lie. I was going to say I'm only this bad at shuffling when I'm videotaping myself, but no, if someone's sitting in front of me. When I'm sitting alone watching TV, I can shuffle like, it's awful. I can shuffle like a dealer in a casino, but when I'm viewing or being viewed in any way, I did for a while used to stop shuffling when I got a bad shuffle and say, oh, it doesn't want to be shuffled anymore. I don't know when I stopped doing that. Probably because I'm such a bad shuffler that I would only shuffle once. So I did a client reading, and I did my 9-card spread that I love so much. But I don't know. I just felt ultimately really good about it. You can't see any of that, can you? Not that this matters, but I'm just playing. I was worried that it wouldn't make sense, but it did. And the reading went really well, and it was it got a good response, and that always makes me happy too, because I want to make people feel like they got their money's worth. This was a gift for someone, but yeah, I don't know. So anyway, it has a very freeing quality to it. And I like looking at them in the spread. It just feels like tarot in a way that I don't know. It feels old-fashioned in a good way. So I'm gonna shut up and let you go. And I'm gonna do a little video on the Rider-Waite and my experience post learning the numbers, or even as I was researching it. But I hope you're doing well. And if you're not yet sold on pip style decks, maybe this will excite you to try more out. So have a good week, and be well.